Hello and welcome to Guys Dealings with Feelings, a podcast focused on men's health and emotional awareness. Jason, a licensed therapist with over 18 years of experience, and I, being profoundly affected by the death of my son, share grounded conversations and practical insights to help men navigate modern life with clarity and intention. Please like, follow, and share wherever you're listening or watching. Doing so helps us reach men who could be positively impacted by this material. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, and TikTok under Guys Dealings with Feelings. And today's episode is going to. So, what's up, Jay? Before I
What's
jump
up,
into
man?
today's, not much, dude. You head right into it. Go
You
ahead
know,
and tackle this.
yeah, no, good. Don't feel well, but it's all I'm
Yeah, that
going on.
sucks. Uh, we're going to jump on why men feel lost in today's society. Again, our the podcast is focused on men. I think everybody feels a little lost right now. Times are crazy, not just in the U.S. but around the world, and it doesn't that energy is flowing about and affecting all of us. So, a lot of men, but people in general feel lost right now. It's broken or weak, just drifting. You wake up, you do the hamster wheel, wake up, handle responsibilities, take care of families, and then go do the things that you're quote unquote supposed to do. Somewhere inside, though, that everybody's, you're kind of asking yourself, is this it? Today, more men than ever are feeling disconnected from their direction, identity, and purpose. And the strange part is that many of them can't even explain why. So, Jason and I are going to try and jump on why so many men feel lost right now, what's really happening beneath the surface, and how to begin finding direction again. Because feeling lost doesn't have to be, it really isn't the end of the story. It's just, it's when you can start waking up to things aren't right. And we talk about this repeatedly. Both Jason and I have traumas that are pretty easy to identify. So it's not, where did this stuff come from? But we had to hit a point where we were kind of sick of the shit that it had brought on to our lives, what our lives looked like, etc. And we made a difference, often called rock bottom. And then today we're kind of focusing on the guy who's not experiencing those things. He hasn't lost a spouse or a child or gone through addiction issues or dealing with serious childhood traumas that have led to addictions. Any of these type things, he's just going to work and he goes to the ball games afterwards and he comes home and he eats the same meal and he drinks the same two beers and he lays down and tomorrow he gets up and he does the same thing again. And through most of history, we had a clear identity as men. We're provider, protector, builder. And in modern society, it's the expectations on men have changed and evolved, but nobody's really let anybody in on the changes and like how the rules are. So now it's just kind of an ambiguous, you're kind of an asshole if I just go to work and I'm rugged and I don't, not to mention that your life isn't, I don't know how satisfying those lives were, but your life isn't really fulfilled, and because all you do is work and sleep. But you're then even if you're doing just that, you're an asshole because you don't have any sensitivity, you don't have any empathy, uh, you don't slow down for others, you don't reflect, you're not accountable, and all those things are good, um, but they don't really go with historically what we've kind of been in line with. What we definitely saw parents and grandparents doing doesn't line up with what we're kind of the expectations that are around us, specifically as men. So, Joe, we've talked about this. We talked about it in the identity episode. We went through this in great detail. Um, and is we see there's football players killing themselves, and not that football is some where that everybody wants to be, but I think it shows a human that has a physically healthy specimen. They're at the top of their performance as far as body performance, and even in those moments, lost or conquered in a way that feels unable to overcome. And a lot of this crisis, I think is would be accurate. We've I
Seems
don't know
like
what the
it.
past tense is. We dove into a lot of statistics in previous episodes about how kind of this is spiraling on us with men. They end up taking their lives, and we when guys come home from war and they're fucked up from it, it makes so much sense. Somebody loses their kid, it makes so much sense. You've gone through some tough things, it makes sense. But when we're just doing what the fuck we thought we were supposed to be doing, because that's what we were told when we were kids, and then it turns out that we're in this hamster wheel that never stops and we just can't get out. But so, I know you're gonna be like, well, if we could just sit down and breathe. But you know what? To give us a little insight, I know you've dealt with this shit repeatedly. Um, so kind of what's your overview of this?
Uh, Man, yeah, I just I refer to my own experience, really. Um, and I'm not, I think a protector, a provider, a space holder, an active participant in a family unit, um, or, an active participant, like in a modern context, laundry and dishes, and, emotional support. I don't think that's ever existed really, not on whole. So I don't there's no judgment or criticism, but there's also no romanticism around some older time where men were protectors I, I don't. We're in an evolutionary process that is asking men to move in that direction of being a protector, a provider, space holder, right? Uh, so, in my own experience, I don't, if I look at the history of the planet, I don't, it seems like we as men, or it doesn't seem like we're doing okay, not really. I don't, you know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, for sure.
we're dropping bombs and shit. I don't, so, a simple way to understand it, and the way I relate to it in my own experience is until I'm connected to my interiority, to my emotional moment to moment felt experience, right?
Mm.
Uh, that I'm incapable of any of those things really, like at a really deep fundamental level, right? So, a way to talk about it is we've lost our understanding of what role we play here on the planet as a species, or we're coming into a deeper, broader role, or I don't, you know what I mean? A more well balanced, stable, right? That is connected to its feelings. So you can think of, uh, but it's just a way of talking about it. Why we as men don't understand what our natural role is and how to embody that. A way to talk about it is that we're left hemisphere dominated without any deep connection to the right hemisphere, which can be described as feminine or emotional or sensitive, feeling based, uh, connection oriented, reciprocity oriented. You see what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it comes down to at a dimension, at least one level, a neurophysiological a neurophysiological problem. So, with no role models, no examples, no rites of passage, no direction of what it means to be a man in the world, you know? Uh, that most of us didn't really receive any clear direction in that area.
Sure. And I think that's an overall experience, but now and maybe now we're becoming more aware of our experiences more than just our strength and ability to pick things up. Um,
Where there's a connection once the right hemisphere comes online, this is all of us, man. As it becomes more online, then there's a deeper connection to feeling,
mhm.
right? There's a deeper opening sensitivity and a deeper opening to our natural compassionate selves, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think that, and then so we're more aware that something is occurring, but we have and we're gonna get we can jump on into it, but uh, but we have emotional illiteracy. We weren't
yeah,
taught, especially as boys, we weren't taught emotional awareness or vocabulary. Uh, Common responses to emotions become anger, humor, and silence. We've talked about these at length, and men are emotionally unavailable. Many simply just not taught how to process emotions. So we don't know how to identify them, and we sure shit don't know what to do with them once we have them. And because of that, uh, when when it comes online, which it is through the conditioning, and here we are, we got this shit to deal with. Don't know what it is, sure, because we don't know what it is. We don't know what to do with it, and something that we talk about, a space we're trying to fill is help for men because it's not there, because it's not fiscally rewarding. And it just, men don't want to go pay for therapy. I'm not suggesting that that's the answer, but they don't want to pay for anything that's outside of that. Pay for physical health, sure, they'll jump on that. And if they were not patterned to run away from it and think it's a weakness, then it would be something we would all be willing. Who the hell doesn't want to feel better?
yeah,
And so, to your point, I think that understanding the emotions and uh, is just another step in the process. Feeling them is the first one, obviously, but then understanding them, what they are, identifying them, and then how to process them. But so, uh, to your point, until we get inward focused, we're kind of at the whim of the society and circumstances surrounding us. And if those have been changing relatively frequently in the U.S. over the last 15 years,
yeah.
they just they'll blow one way and then the other.
The way that this plays itself out, the lack of our connection to what we offer on this planet, like what we offer as men. Um, the most uh, dramatic way it plays out is relationally, right? Through our through partnership, right? And I'm not right now. I'm just talking about um, I got male and female relationships, and when I use those words, I'm really talking about masculine and feminine energies that are in everybody, everything. And those are just ways of talking about something that's incomprehensible, really, you know, at the deepest level. Um, but, the predominant mode of relating on the planet is a male body and a female body. If you can just keep it in the context of common sense, anyway, uh, that's the predominant mode of relating. That's okay. And there are other ways of relating, but I'm not talking about that in this moment. Any of our relationships, right? One of the things we haven't been informed of is the role that we play in assisting in the healing of our partner's nervous system through carrying more load, right?
Is that like we carrying more emotional load, like like we're now doing more laundry and things like? Because wife is also in the workforce, we're doing more physically, but you're saying emotionally we're doing more heavy lifting too.
All the way around, right?
Yeah.
But why are people going to work? Why is that being done? You see what I'm trying to say? Why are we spending so much effort and time in that space, making that effort, right? Now, anyway, so the way I relate to predominantly, like at its core, the most natural expression of the feminine is not out in the world working hard and efforting and doing. It's actually not what's happened. That individual is actually able to kind of do what they feel called to do. Create, play, spend time with friends. If they if it that that if the If my partner wants to do things, and I mean, obviously, duh. But if that's more of a calling and they're out doing things and that just feels really good, right? That's beautiful, right? Because typically the feminine plays the role of enhancing love and beauty and flow within the household. How could like that that seems like pretty obvious. Do you know what I'm trying to say? But if both partners are out in environments that are inherently stressful, right? Then what's that doing to their nervous systems and their bodies? You know what I'm trying to say? So I'm really, yeah, just all the way around carrying more of the energetic payload,
Yeah.
right? You see what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And 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 when we have no contribution in the area of emotional payload, emotional expression within the fabric of the relationship, right? If we have no contribution there, you could say we're it's a distortion, it's a disparity, right? It's a missing opportunity.
And I think that bleeds over well into even male friendships. And I know you're not saying it has to be female, male that you're talking about. It's all relationships. You're talking about the feminine side of our
Yeah, yeah,
beings.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
because,
Two individuals that are like in the
but
same type of body, male body, two
yeah,
male bodies that are in a relationship, you can talk about masculine and feminine expressions within the
right,
fabric of that relationship and
right.
within any sort of experience.
And I think there's a lot of loneliness in men because they don't have friendships with guys. They've faded and they're just focusing on working and raising kids. And there's a time for that. And I think that, we got to focus on work, ball games, kids, and wife. There's only so much time in the day. Uh, and then good friends are always good friends. If it's been a week or a year or 5 years, they're still good friends. And um, there's wedges being driven between all of us in our society. But when you have a bunch of individuals who can't recognize why they're having these feelings. They want to share them with other people, but then they feel weak to share them with other people. They sure don't want to expose themselves to other men. They don't expose themselves to the females in case it gets tossed back in their faces. These things are all there, and it leads to this like vacuum. And the feeling of loneliness is crushing, and
Yeah, some
uh,
years ago, the Surgeon General of the United States wrote a paper entitled it "The Loneliness Epidemic," right?
yeah,
And the way that I relate to that is you have a culture and a society of people that are disconnected from their interiority, from themselves, from what they're actually experiencing inside, and that's made them afraid of each other. And there's this idea of individualism and it's anyway, it's like competitive notion around life, uh
yeah, and
and
I
yeah.
think that stems from all this. This is what's driving it. The emotional literacy, the drive to be competitive, the way that the financial system is set up in our society, that drive to be competitive, the society pushing us and conditioning us to do that pretty constantly from the time that we're born in until now. I think we're still like your boys out there blowing shit up, and that's uh to be this far along in a species and still think that the best answer is to kill one another is tough. And
It's
mm, it, sh-
insane, yeah.
it shows the gravity of the issue and
It
how
speaks
deeply
to
rooted
the
it is.
collective level of consciousness and maturity,
Yeah. So
right?
I,
And because again, here we are on a planet together. Where did we come from? Where are we going? Why do we have these imagined, not real differences, but why do we imagine certain meanings behind those differences? Right? So here we are together. Where do we come from? What are we doing? You know? And all of us are supplied with stories about that, about who we are, about what the other is,
So we
you
don't
know?
ever think about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's just part of the cultures around the world refer to this differently. So some refer to it as Maya, the illusion of the world, how it draws you in, sucks you in. Some refer to it as the hellscapes. That's just how it's referred to by some. To that it's a hologram what we're actually experiencing, and we come in as souls, all the same, but yet there are these concepts that rule the world. We come in and are conditioned by, you know what I mean? And very difficult to see through it. What
Even
sees
when you recognize it, it's hard to
what
see through it.
sees through it is the heart. The heart knows what we are naturally. We're not vicious, competitive, selfish creatures like we've been told. That's crazy. It's not. It is a part of things here, but that is when we're not, that's at a certain state of evolution. That's when the interior of our system is completely disconnected. The left hemisphere isn't connected to the right hemisphere. The right hemisphere is, you could say, deeply associated with the connection to the heart, right? Uh, so everybody's stuck in their head concept. And once the heart opens up, that's where we know, you know, that everything we're the same. Everybody, like just every bit's just human. You know what I'm trying to say? Uh, and that
But I
comes
don't
through and that a deeper connection to our interiority.
and the
If that makes
uh
sense.
it does, and the reward, the quality of relationships and the reward that come from that quality after this awareness is um
Immeasurable.
immeasurable, and it makes clear to me what the fuck it is we're
What's
really
important?
supposed to be experiencing and what's
Yeah.
really should be
And
important.
what isn't important is being right, is a way of talking about it, right? Because being connected to your interiority generally uh evokes humility.
Yeah, a foundation in my book, a foundation of recovery is open-minded. And when I say that, it was the best way I could put being open to being wrong about
Yeah.
anything, anything, not
And in
anything.
there's a very popular book called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And it speaks at a deeper level of what it means to be open. What is open? You see what I mean? What is
Mhm.
it that's actually open? Uh, and for us, being open, a way of talking about it is that our system's in balance. There's strong flow in the nervous system and in the body. It's parasympathetically dominated. We're more at rest, you could say, right? And that actually equals open and receptive, right? So you can describe openness from a neurophysiological perspective
Yeah, and
framework.
because I've always lived this way, I don't not even being that deep. Just being because you're right, and I think that's what you end up at, and that's the openness that allows things to flow in and out so beautifully and to have the amazing feelings and all that and really get to experience them and really stay centered and not worried and all that. All that comes with that. But just on a simple know that everything you think could be wrong and be willing to hear
Yeah.
and accept that.
That's a
And
very,
because
very challenging thing for us to.
so difficult to do, especially to your point when we think that the idea is to be right. And it feels like being,
That's related to not understanding what a perspective is and how to let it go. When I work with couples all the time, what we talk about is how they're actually engaged in a uh, exchanging of perspective. I see it this way. Well, this is how I you know, and there's no expression or communication of feeling.
And how hard it is to so what is perspective is another huge foundation of recovery, I think, and once we're able to understand that perspective is just our viewpoint, and everybody has a viewpoint. There's not like this master viewpoint that's the correct one, and then we all kind of skew from that with the burden of life experiences that we have and beliefs we've come up with. When we understand that our perspective is just ours and not everybody should share the exact same perspective we have because they haven't lived the exact same circumstances and life experiences we have, it opens up this huge window of A, we could be wrong, and B, two people can be right in saying two different things. And that's the concept in itself is difficult to wrap our minds around.
It is, yeah.
And then practicing it, to your point, in relationships, you're trying to coexist while maintaining two separate perspectives, and it's really difficult. So the more we kind of tighten that in, so it happens with our friends too, and but if we're just hanging out with our friends once a week, once a month, once a year, not as big of a deal as the individual we wake up next to every day, and we have to take every day with this person. So those two shared perspectives, and we begin to grow together and share so many experiences together. The longer that is, the perspective begins to blend a little more. But without discussion, we cannot figure it out that that's happening, and without understanding that you are not just right because you saw it with your own two eyes. um, it's not that you're wrong, it's that others can be right too. And so I think that the idea in all of this is that to get to heal yourself from this place is a constant work, but is the first step is to be aware that it's happening, and to be aware A, that you're coming online emotionally, B, to understand what those emotions are and to become familiar with those emotions, C, how to regulate those emotions, so kind of turning inward, the things we talk about regularly as far as sitting down. If you can, find the time to do some form of meditation, guided, unguided, just spending the time with self, being present, practicing that. In current circumstances, I'm doing it myself. I've got to focus on being grounded, because things, if I think too hard about them, will spiral out of control. And we don't know what we're doing. That happens to us, and it just lasts for weeks. And that's so taxing on us. And so when we start to be aware that this is happening, start asking people, uh, or wherever you find your information, things about values and priorities and identity. Start learning what's going on so you can find some clarity around this stuff, so you can see, what are these emotions? You can begin to recognize them and you can begin to regulate them. This podcast is a good place. I feel like we could have good content that can put you in a space that can free you from these feelings of being trapped.
Yeah, yeah, amen to all that. Uh, this is how how fundamental this is. When people come and see me, when I see couples, 'cause I mean, this applies to my own life too. It's not, um, it's almost nobody recognizes, because that's actually the problem. Most people are unconsciously hoping, expecting, desiring something outside of them to minimize their experiences of fear and shame and guilt and a sense of separation and lack. And that's what generally is going on between two people, an unconscious expectation that what's outside of them is going to really permanently deal with what's going on in here. Right.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's a
Now
false premise. Yeah.
we can learn how to open up the potential of the relationship for deeper healing. That's possible.
That's Yeah, I see that as just somebody kind of walking with you. It just always helps to have somebody walking with you, but they are not going to be fixing it. They're just going to be there with you when the storm is there. They're there to comfort
And
you in the
but
storm.
a that offers a depth that seems to, or maybe it it's not. available outside of relationship, but, I mean, I don't know if that's told you. It just seems that the relationship in and of itself, especially in modern life, holds the potential for deeper healing. Yeah, we seem to find ourselves in relationships that are particularly match our past and triggers.
Hmm.
We seem to
Which is
be.
interesting.
Yeah.
We
So
seem to
because
do
they
that.
actually hold the relationship of deeper healing. We just don't know how to unlock it. But that starts here with ourselves.
Yeah, and awareness and being as so
That's
if
what
you're
I mean.
listening to
Yeah.
this if you're listening to this and you feel lost, or if you have felt lost anytime and now, you're not alone. I think it's obvious. Like you said, it's people that we look up to and see they're taking their lives. It's not that we're the only ones that feel this way, and it doesn't have to mean things are broken, but as much as something inside of you is waking up. And it's the moment when you can start questioning the direction that you've been moving and begin thinking about the direction that you would like to go. It's awareness is so powerful because once we realize that we're drifting away from what it is that we're seeking, we now have the choice to make that a lot of people never do. And that's to stop, reflect, and decide what kind of person we want to become. And from that moment forward, we can start taking the steps towards becoming that person. So feeling lost is not failure. Sometimes it's simply the beginning of finding your way. And understanding that is such a perspective shift away from this is something that I cannot get over. It is too overwhelming. It's going to take, if I can get over, it's going to take too long. And that's when calling it quits is an option. And I just want people to know that simple thing that it's the begin where you are and as fucked up as you feel, that can be the very beginning of turning this whole thing around to finding yourself where you want to be. And as always, we're going to thank you so much for giving us your time, your most valuable asset. Until next time, stay in the fight. The world is a much better place with you in it.